All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. So today's due now. We're actually going to talk about something different today. So what we've been doing the past few days is reviewing one and two step equation solving. Today we're going to talk about the distributive property, something that you should have been exposed to, but if not, I know because of COVID, you might not have seen it as much in the 7th grade as you maybe were supposed to. But you should have seen it in the 6th grade, 5th grade. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the distributive property today and then what that looks like with our two-step equation solving. All right. So when I've got something like -4 v parentheses v minus 3, sorry guys, that's the bell. I notice a few things. First of all, I notice this 4 in front of the parentheses, and then I notice these two terms inside the parentheses, so v and -3. As far as terms go, you'll hear me say that a lot when I'm talking about terms. So what I mean is when v and -3 are together, it's v minus 3, but when I'm looking at them as separate terms, it's v and -3. And we'll talk more about that in the future. But basically, when we've got a number directly in front of parentheses like this, it's being implied that we're multiplying that -4 to whatever is inside the parentheses. So I'm gonna rewrite this over here so you can see what I'm saying. So -4 times v minus 3. That's pretty much what it's saying. So we need to use the distributive property or distribute that -4 to those two terms within the parentheses. So I'm going to go ahead and draw an arrow to show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute the -4 to v. So -4 times v. So -4 times v is just -4v. And then I'm going to distribute the -4 to the -3. So, and in your calculators, again, I've been reviewing this in previous lessons, but you have a negative button right next to your decimal point. And then if you've got a Casio calculator, just make sure you're looking for a button that looks like this. It should be on the left side on a Casio calculator. But you're going to enter that. So -4 times -3, and that's going to give me +12. So plus 12. And all I did was I multiplied that term in the front, so that -4 to those two terms within the parentheses. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to highlight. So I've got a -9 in front that's going to be multiplied to the two terms that are inside the parentheses. So I've got -10, or I've got 10b and -3. So I need to distribute that -9 to those two terms inside the parentheses. So I'm distributing it by multiplying it. So -9 times 10 is going to give me -90, but then I have to remember that there's a b there. So I've got -90b, and then -9 times -3. Make sure we're practicing putting these in our calculators. So -3 times -9 is going to give us +27. So I'm going to put plus 27. And so you'll notice I said simplify the expression. So and I'm going to review in the next slide about what it means to have expressions versus equations. And so are there any questions about today's due now? All right. I'm going to go ahead and go over this. So I've got expressions versus equations. So an expression is what we just did. So these over here where there's no equal sign. So something like -4v plus 12. 2 plus 2 is an expression. 2 plus 2 equals 4 is an equation because there's an equal sign. So they both have operations. So an operation is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And they both have variables. So when we're solving for a missing variable, you'll see a letter in replacement for a missing value that we have to solve for. Expressions you cannot solve unless given a variable to evaluate it. So here we can't figure out what V is, we just can simplify the expression, but we can't figure out what V is unless we have an equal sign over here. Equations allow us to solve for missing variables. So that's the difference. So I wanted you guys to kind of practice the distributive property by itself first in our do now. And now we're going to look at what is the distributive property. I'm going to move myself over here. So what is the distributive property? So again, I'm going to highlight my two terms on the inside of the parentheses. So I've got x and plus 1. So again, that 2 is going to be distributed to those two terms inside the parentheses by multiplication. So I'm multiplying positive 2 to both of these terms inside the parentheses. So 2 times x, so the yellow one, so 2 times x is 2x. 2 times positive 1 is positive 2. And then I haven't touched that 6 yet, so it's just 6. Now I've got a two-step equation to solve. So this is kind of where these come in handy, knowing how to use the distributive property, because we are going to use it more when doing multi-step equation solving. But here it's helpful because we got rid of those parentheses and now we can just solve for a two-step equation. So I'm going to draw my line down the middle. Again, if we're talking about, if this helps you, if you're a visual learner, I'm going to isolate. So I'm going to highlight my, I'm going to highlight my constant and my variable term. So a constant term is a term without a letter, and a variable term is a term with the letter or the variable. So 2x has an x in it, so it's a variable term. So I need to get that, my final goal is to get that x by itself. So I want to get x isolated so I can solve for it. Before I can do that, I need to get this 2 over to the right side because I need to start taking the steps to get x by itself. I can't just do it all at once. So step 1, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 2 from both sides. And I'm doing this because I want to get rid of this positive 2 term. All right, I'm going to rewrite, so 2x, because I haven't touched that, equals 6 minus 2 is 4. All right, now it's just a one-step equation. Step 2, I know when I've got a number right next to a variable like this, they're being multiplied. So 2x means 2 times x. So to get x by itself, I can actually divide both sides by 2. So x is going to equal 4 divided by 2, which is 2. And that's basically how we solve problems like that. So what is a distributive property? We'll see problems where we've got distributive property on both sides. And we have to distribute and combine like terms and all sorts of stuff. So I wanted to practice with some simpler problems so we could get into the habit of doing this before we get into more complicated problems. Again, make sure you're saying something if you have a question or comment. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this one. So I've got 2 terms on the inside of my parentheses here. I've got 12 and negative d. So I need to take, again, this 3 is being multiplied to the inside term. So 3 times 12 and 3 times negative d. So 3 times 12 is going to give us 36. And then 3 times negative d is negative 3d, okay? So if that's confusing for you at all, this negative d is the same thing as negative 1d. So if we were to multiply in your calculator negative 1 times 3, because again, we multiplied 3 times negative 1 essentially, you would get negative 3, and then you just have to make sure you attach that d variable to it. And then I'm going to bring down my 18 because we haven't touched that yet. All right. So now I've just got a 2-step equation to solve. I got rid of those parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and highlight. So I've got my constants. I'm going to put my constants in yellow. So those are my numbers that don't have a variable in them. And then I'm going to highlight my variable term. So my term with the variable or the letter. So we've got d in this case. And again, our goal is to solve for d. And I draw the wall just to remind us to do each step. Everything we do to one side, we have to do to the other side because we're working on keeping that equation balanced when we're solving. All right, so I want to solve for d, but I can't do that until I get rid of 36. So I need to bring that to the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that that's a positive 36, a positive term. So whenever you want to move a positive term to the other side of the equal sign, you can subtract it. So, sorry, step 1, I'm going to subtract 36 from either side. I'm going to bring down negative 3d because I haven't done anything to that. And then this canceled over here, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. And then I've got 18 minus 36 over here. People forget to do this step a lot. They'll just bring down negative 36 or bring down 18. Make sure you're actually combining those when you're doing each step to both sides. 18 minus 36. Somebody today in class was taking a number that was bigger away from a smaller number and was like, that's not possible. And I was like, well, put it in your calculator. So 18 minus 36 is going to give us negative 18. So it does work. So negative 18. Now I've just got a one-step equation to solve. So step 2, we've got negative 3d. Well, I know when we've got a number next to a variable, they're being multiplied. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by negative 3 to get rid of that, and so I can isolate d and get it by itself. So d is going to equal negative 18 divided by negative 3. So if I put that in my calculator, make sure you're practicing putting these in your calculator. Negative 18, so find that negative button, divided by negative 3 gives us positive 6. So make sure you're practicing putting those in your calculator because negatives can get weird. If you forget to add a negative, then it'll mess up your whole answer. Because if we forgot to put this negative right here in front of 3, we would have gotten negative 6 because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. So just make sure that you're carrying your negatives down and making sure you're checking for your work. Does anybody have any questions about this? All right, this one has bigger numbers, but it's the same exact concept. I'm gonna go ahead and make it a little bit bigger so I can, all right. I'm gonna highlight and then I'm gonna send you on your own to work on this for a few minutes. So I've got x and I've got 5. And again, I'm gonna wanna distribute that negative 12 to both of these terms, okay? So I'm gonna give you probably like 2 or 3 minutes to try and solve this one by yourself, and then we'll go ahead and go over it. So go ahead and practice. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and go over this one. All right, so we've got 144 equals negative 12, parentheses, x plus 5. All right, so step 1, we can't start doing our equation solving. We can't solve for x until we distribute that negative 12. So I've got to get negative 12. I'm going to do this in black. Negative 12 times x is going to give us negative 12x, and then negative 12 times positive 5. Remember to practice putting negatives in your calculator. Negative 12 times positive 5 is going to give us negative 60. equals, and then we haven't done anything to this 144, so I'm just going to keep that how it is. All right, now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to highlight just so, because I like to highlight. So again, we've got our variable term is negative 12x, and our constant terms are negative 60 and 144. So my goal is to get x all by itself, but before I can even deal with negative 12x, I have to move negative 60 to the left side. Why do I have to move it? So I can isolate negative 12x so I can get x by itself eventually. So my first step in my two-step equation, so step 1, I'm going to go ahead and add 60 to both sides. And I'm adding 60 because there's a negative in front of it. So it's a negative term, so I'm going to cancel it by adding it. All right, and then we've got some bigger numbers. So 144 plus 60 gives us 204. And then I haven't done anything to the negative 12x yet, so I'm just going to bring that down. All right, so I've got negative 12x equals 204. I need to get x all by itself. I know that when I have a number right next to a variable, I need to get it by itself by dividing because it's being multiplied. So again, I need to use the opposite operation to get it by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 12. So negative 12 divided by negative 12 cancels. I'm going to be left with x equals, and then in your calculators, 204 divided by negative 12. Make sure you're typing in that negative 12, because if you don't, you're going to get the wrong answer. So 204 divided by negative 12 is going to give us negative 17. All right. Remember to ask questions if you have questions as we're going through this. All right. I'm going to go ahead and highlight. So I've got 2c and negative 6 are my terms inside my parentheses. So I need to distribute, because again, that 10 is being multiplied. It's being multiplied by both of those terms. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply positive 10 times 2c. So if that confuses you, you can just do 10 times 2 and then attach a c to it. So 10 times 2 is 20. And then I've got to bring down that c, so 20c. So 10 times 2c is 20c. And then I'm going to multiply 10 times negative 6, which is going to give me negative 60. And then equals 50, because I haven't done anything at that 50 yet. All right, I can go ahead and start moving around my constants and my variable terms, because I need to solve for c now, because c is our missing value. So all right, I need to get that negative 60 on the right side. So I've got 20c minus 60 equals 50. So I need to go ahead and do my first step. So I'm going to go ahead and add 60 to both sides. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to get c by itself eventually, but I can't do that until I get all the constants on one side and all the variable terms on the other side. So that's going to cancel. I'm going to be left with, I'm going to bring down my variable terms. So 20c equals 50 plus 60, which is going to give us 110. All right, now this is just a one-step equation. All right, so 20c is the same thing as 20 times c. All right, so to get it 20c, or to get c by itself, I can go ahead and use the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So whenever you see me draw this, bar, I'm dividing. This bar means division, so dividing both sides by 20. And so 20 divided by 20 cancels. I'm left with c by itself equals, and then in your calculator, you can type in 110 divided by 20. And that's going to give me 5.5. And again, I like to be nice and neat and color code, and I like to be nice and neat and box in my answer just so I can stay organized. All right, so that is today's lesson. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. something on Google Classroom really quick. You guys are in my CP math class in person. You guys are my remote class. If you're not joined, make sure you get joined. But hopefully you're all in Google Classroom at this point. I've invited everybody. I post the lessons every day. So all 4 lessons for the week are going to be uploaded to the week of 9/14, 9/18. So if you ever miss a day of class, you can come back and watch them just to make sure you're caught up. Anytime you see a star or an asterisk next to an assignment, that means it's for a grade. So you've got 3 grades this week. You've got an exit ticket, which is just 2 problems that I want you guys to enter to work on. And they're just a 1-step and a 2-step equation. I've got an interest inventory, so I want to know a little bit about yourselves. And then 2-step equation practice. This is just 6 problems, and you get to solve for the missing variable. And I just want to, because I can't see you guys face to face, so I want to make sure that you have access to practice problems at home and that you're understanding from what I'm teaching in the videos and in the class sessions. So today is the last class session for this week. However, this link that you clicked today, that'll work if you have any questions about class, if you want to meet with me privately. So during this time, 9:32 to 10:11 on Fridays, you can still click this link, and I will be available for an office hours situation where you can come talk to me about any problems you're having, grades. If you want extra help, we can go over some examples. I can share my screen with you and write out some examples like I normally do. So if you have any questions about that, you can let me know. Next week is going to be the week of 9/21 to 9/25. So when you see that, that's going to be all your work for that week, along with all of the lessons linked in there as well. So those are all on YouTube for you guys to watch. I'm going to go ahead and end today's lesson. I'm going to stay on till 10:11 though, so if you have any questions, you can ask, but I am going to stop doing the screen recording so that your questions aren't in the YouTube video.